Man, let us talk about the fact that World Rugby is in the mood to just bring down the mood. And as they are trying to talk about shrinking the women's rugby balls. I love that. Love the phrasing. But either way, very serious topic right now. All right. But the reality of the situation is that there is an initiative that is happening right now where World Rugby has been looking to find ways to speed the game. Now, we've talked about in the past multiple iterations of what their 5-point plan to be able to increase the game and develop it more. We've seen greater emphasis in trying to be a little bit more media. Obviously, they bought Rugby Pass, and now RugbyPass.tv is kind of becoming the central hub for all international games that may or may not be played on, may not be shown on a national level. And on top of that, impacting the way that the game is played on the field, referee call, but really increasing the speed of the game. And the conversation has been about, really particularly in this one, shrinking the women's ball from the typical 5 ball to a 4.5-pound, 4.5 size ball, which is 3% smaller, 3 to 4% lighter than what the regular game ball would be. So much closer to what really is like the youth ball, like U14, U12 ball, more of it. And the idea of this is that there was a data set provided that said that that there was a far greater speed of passing and higher likelihood of catching based off of a data point that the women's had with the 4.5 ball. Now, when it comes to comparative to other sports, this is not atypical. We know in basketball, professional basketball, the WNBA has a technically smaller ball. Not technically, it has a smaller ball than NBA balls. In baseball, the softball is a bigger ball than the typical baseball. But there's been a lot more history precedented to that. In this situation, the real controversy is less so about the factor that there's 2 separate balls, but more so of the factor that consistently the pride and joy that has been part of rugby has always been about the factor that all things are equitable and equal when it comes to playing on the field for whatever size, men, women, D1, D2, elite, whatever, everybody's playing the same level of game. Now, in this kind of commitment, the idea of trying to improve the women's game becomes this question of who's asking this? Who's asking this? And I feel like this is sometimes a version of World Rugby stepping outside of their bounds of where they need to be. I think we saw this a lot recently when it came to the reffing situation, then the rise of TMO and the over reffing through TMO, which now has become its own problematic issue in terms of how games are called, the power that goes to the refs, subsequently the abuse that occurred with refs as a result of these plays, abuse that occurred with TMO. This is another step where it's like World Rugby might be going too far. Now, trying to be able to make sure I find what was the proper analysis that came with this, but it was essentially by a data scientist by the name of Lindsay Starling. And Lindsay Starling is a science and medical manager at World Rugby. And she said that, as it's quote, let me bring out the quotes because I want to make sure you guys are able to see this alongside with me. She said that with the women's, she said that because the typical adult male hands are 10% larger than the adult female, you find that in trials, what actually happens is that the women's play with the smaller they've committed to trialing, and the women play with the smaller ball has begun to show signs that there might be more speed that goes along with it. You know, I get the idea. I get the idea if the problem had persisted. Look, we constantly have been able to see that at the elite level, we're not seeing a loss. I look at Portia Woodman. Is she losing anything on the ball? Seems to be pretty elite. Emily Scarrett, even though she's more so just coming into play. Look at Charlotte Caslick. I'm talking more in sevens. Look at someone like you know what? I'm going to stick in sevens because that's where we see the fastest moment. Look at Anaya Tapper. Look at a Jasmine Joyce, who's tiny. Jasmine Joyce is tiny. Ain't having problems holding on to the ball. So, yes, the idea of it being maybe smaller hands makes sense logically, but are we seeing a real disruption in the game at the levels that matter most, which is at the highest levels? Now, if we're talking about things that are happening at club levels, we're talking about at the youth levels, maybe we can have a conversation. But even within that, I have to go back and ask, like, are we seeing so significantly of a throw-off that the women are complaining about not having it? And I know there's people saying that it's divided, but I don't feel like we're seeing a conversation that's divided 50-50. I think we're seeing a conversation of a not even loud minority, like a slightly higher toned minority that might be talking about, oh, what if the balls were smaller or being able to grip it? But I think there's another conversation here that has to be had. And I saw this online that was really great. So I don't want to take the credit for it, but I don't know where it was. I saw it on Facebook. But someone really made a great point in the fact that if you change the balls, you inherently put a disadvantage to the growth of club women's rugby. Why? Because typically a women's rugby program is developed after the men's rugby program. And they utilize the offsetting material from the men's program for the women's program before they usually get their own thing. So if you end up shrinking the size of the ball for a club team or a college team, you are in essence either increasing the cost to be able to play rugby for a women's side and inherently creating a disadvantage for developing that because the men's side might not want to invest that money into it, or the women's side might not have the financial means to be able to complete and develop their side. But you're also putting that disadvantage on the growth of the girls from a youth measure in terms of knowing that you have a credible sport that, at least from a position of equitability, nobody can talk about it. Ain't nobody can talk about it, you know? So, yes, women have naturally smaller hands on average. But again, in this situation, are we seeing enough of a disadvantage to make it worth it? And from what I'm seeing, especially at the top levels, where you want to see it matter most, because that's where your majority of your money is going to be coming into. That's where majority of your attention is going to be coming into, where the majority of your credibility is going to be coming into. You're not seeing an overall, I don't feel like there's an overall complaint that's being had with it. So I argue against it. I want to know what you guys think about this. I know we're seeing it a lot online, a lot of women retorting against it because it doesn't make sense to them. And I'm like I said, I completely agree. But let's look at it from the other side. Let me know from your and to some extent, let's look at it from a position logically as opposed to protecting people from themselves, which I feel like a lot of the conversation goes to of protect the women from themselves so we know better. Like I don't think that goes well in this. But actually make the conversation in terms of viewership, in terms of the growth ability, in terms of financial ability. What is the advantage that goes with this? And again, you know, they're saying it's faster game, fewer rucks, scrums, while kicking and lineouts throws might also mean improvement in accuracy and distance. But again, are we seeing that? Are we really seeing that at the highest level, the club level, the college level, the youth level? Let me know what you guys think about that.
We're taking dumplings to a new level. My name is Belu. I'm here with Health Enhanced Foods, and I want to introduce you to one of our most popular products, dumpling flour. What makes our dumpling flour so popular is that it is a mix of unrefined super flours that create the maximum level of nourishment for your personal dumplings. This is including mixes like buckwheat, sunflower, flax seeds, everything that helps to be able to make your appetite stronger, more fulfilled, and healthier. Including within that, we have no added sugars, so we want to make sure that it is rich in protein, rich in fiber, and rich in vitamins and minerals. Our dumpling flour is diabetic friendly, high in quality gluten-free mixes with no rice. And if you know, you know. There's always a little bit of rice to be able to stabilize it, not here in our dumpling flour. It is naturally nourishing, and of course, it's a great substitute for wheat-based dumplings. With this gluten-free dumpling, you can now make your croissants, you can make your rice dumplings, you can make your dessert dumplings. You can absolutely find this at healthenhancedfoods.com. Go ahead, get yourself a bag, get yourself a pallet, and make sure that you can fulfill for your people and yourself the way that you really deserve it. Don't wait, let's go.